So, do you fancy a wee trip to Scotland? Or a wee trip to Scotland? Perhaps I'd better stop trying to do a Scottish accent, but let's just have some Scottish hills with a bit of moisture in the atmosphere. And a bit of moisture on the ground, for that matter. There's the moisture on the ground, and just to counterbalance that, let's have a bit of a roadway. Let's have a more severe change of direction than that. I think one of the things I find very difficult to do is to make the changes in direction of things that are going into the distance sufficiently acute. They always end up more what's the word I'm looking for? Less severe than, more gentle than I would like. In fact, I might broaden that out just to add a bit more perspective to the whole thing. So, and we'll have a white line down the side of the road, and maybe something going around the bend, if not me. All right, that'll probably if what do we have here? We'll put a rock or two down in that region, just to say there's a wee bit of a bank there. So let's make the rocks go up the bank so that it's clear that the ground is changing level. All right, I think that'll do as an initial sketch in of the overall shapes. So let's get on with the sky. Probably got a lot of blue on this brush left over from the previous painting, I thought so. So we'll just allow the various colours on the brush, the blue and the red and the dark, all to do a bit of blending. So this is not a sky with a lot of blue showing through. This is going to have cloud cover over the entire sky area. Seem to have ended up with one mountain where I wanted to have two, but that's all right. I don't suppose it really matters. In the original photograph, I think there were three. So what do we do to play around with this sky. Oh, it's got a fair amount of water in it already, which could just move the clouds around. Colour right up to the top. So it's all kind of damp up there. It's not very wet in that region, is it? Just moving the paint around. I want some mist over this hill. And let's just darken the clouds in various areas. Not very mobile, is it? The theory is that when you squeeze the bottle trigger really hard, you get a very fine spray out of it. And when you squeeze it less hard, you get drops, but it doesn't always seem to work that way. But, well, it's always fun. And I've got differential drying going on. There are some areas that are drier than others, and I don't really want that. I want it all to be blending. And I don't want a straight line up the side there. So let's see if we can do something about that. And that's got kind of sort of identity to it. Yeah, all right. Let's just leave the sky to get on with developing as it wants to, really. And what do we turn our attention to now? Should we ever go at the road, do you think? Well, I'm going to have a go at the road. I don't know what you're going to do. So just put in a bit of water where I want the paint to go. I very carefully made the road wider, didn't I, down here at the bottom, because I thought it suited the perspective. So let's actually put the water there, and yeah, I'm not sure about that bend, but we'll see how it goes, I suppose. Alright, let's put in a bit of road colour. So this is Scotland, where I assume, where tar macadam was invented, just from the basis of the name macadam. So I guess the road is made of tarmac, is what I'm saying. Hence the colour, as opposed to concrete. Just trying to even out the colour there. Take it round the corner, and disappearing off in that direction. Still not wet enough. Far too wet now, but that's life. Up around the corner, and back around the corner, and a white line in the middle. As I say, I'm never confident about these curves with the road, or for that matter a river, goes around a bend. And all this while, of course, the sky is drying, and I see up there it's got some blooms happening that we don't really want. So let's just try and deal with those in a slightly informal fashion. With the world's first paintbrush. And shall we give the road a bit of a shoulder as well? So there's another white line down here. Okay, right. So the stream is maybe a little bit lighter than the road, but essentially similar sort of colour, and there are bits of the stream that are white water, so we'll they sort of vary from one side of the stream to the other. It's not consistent, but that'll give the general impression of streaminess, I think. Streamitude. All right. Now, how dry is that? Not very dry yet, so let's encourage it to become drier. With my special dryness encourager here. And we've got a rim of wet along the back of the painting, and if I don't do something about that, it will sneak around to the front and cause blooms to come down from the top. It's already doing it, isn't it? Look at that. Just while I was talking. That's a paint stripper gun, so we're using it on paint to dry it, but of course this is watercolour paint, so it's not got the plastic layer that oil paints or acrylics have. It sinks into the fibres of the paper. Okay, so now let's have a go at these hills. Now they're not really very far away, so they're not off in the distance. They're not purple hills. So this brush is not sufficiently damp. So then, yes, they're not purple hills. So there's a certain element of dull greenness about them. I think what I'm going to try and do is to paint them fairly pale, and then we might go over them later on with darker paint. So I want this intermediate hill to be reasonably dark anyway, so let's just start with that so we can test out the colour of our paint. I think that's not too bad. Ooh, look at that sky colour leaking into the hill. In fact, let's take that up over the mist that I have coming down over this background hill. Just realised I'm sticking my hand into the paint on the road. I don't mind getting paint on my hand, but I don't want the road to get all smeared. Alright, so that's reasonable sort of colour, and because what I'm trying to do is to work towards that hill. I'll dry this off so we don't get leaks between one hill and the other. Okay, so now we can move on to hill number 2, background hill, and just have some colour going into the mist here. I think what we need is a bit of water. A clean brush? Don't think it is. Let's do a bit of cleaning here. Just got a bit of paint in it. I don't want any paint, so let's clean that out. And now what I want to do is to put some water in here that the paint on the rest of the mountain can just leak into, so we don't get a hard edge on anything, because it's got cloud coming down, leaking down over it. And a bit darker on this side. Don't, whatever you do, try to indicate shadows using black. Use neutral tint instead, which is my black. These are dark hills, they're not mist is coming down that central portion. Let's just see if we can I might just try and put a bit more liquid there too. Probably more than I wanted. Just try and spread a bit of paint, hill colour, into that central region, and just get a little bit of a hint of something in the background there. Not enough so that you can be sure of the shape, but place so that you feel that there is some shape there that you're sensing through the mist. Okay, so that, I think, just about giving us the sort of contrast of light and dark that we're after. Don't want it to look as though there's snow up there though, which it's trying to do sort of at the moment. Oh, maybe if that's what somebody sees in it, then that's what somebody sees in it, I suppose. All right. Background hill. Let's have the background hill going up a bit more. So again, putting in some liquid that is meant to just pull some paint up into it, pull some pigment upward. So just enough of a hint that we're going up higher. There we are, I think that's just about doing it. And do you want to have some on the other side as well, or is that giving too much away? Let's change the angle of this so that the other side is going up as well. There. I feel as though that's more or less done what I wanted. Now, darker colours in these foreground hills are required. So I put a streak up the hill without really saying exactly what the streak is, so it's just that the hill is not consistently the same green colour. So we've got some variation up there, and we're going to have another contrasting shape rather than colour, although we will use a different colour for it, but it's just a composition with a sort of backwards and forwardsness about it that we need to induce the variation, the interest, using oops, I don't want that colour, I want a blue, not red. I'm not getting very much of it. Let's try again. And it's gone very, very blue. So let's, yeah, still very blue. It's probably because of all the blue I've got in the brush that it's changing every lot of yellow I add to a very blue colour. All right, but let's have a go at this area. Oh, let's overlap the stuff above instead of trying to cut in around it. So and let's say that the overall shape of that area is going around this. Now, what's happened to the stream? Is it going to go under the road? I think it's going to go under the road, so we'll allow that to happen. Should we have some sort of a little bridge, do you think? To be indicated by finer brush for this, just a horizontal line and a couple of bridge supports, and as we get closer to the foreground, I think we need to have a bit of green, don't we? Let's put some yellow in there. And the stream is somehow covered over by the bank there. Now, quite dark under the bridge. And back to, oops, rubbish on the brush. Back to the other colour, and a bit more sort of close-up colour here. And around the stream, I might add some dark for the stream edge. We'll see how that goes, though. And I also want to bring that down here to meet, so we can't actually see the road there, but we can see the bridge. You have a clear edge there. And stick my hand in the paint, do I? And then bring this along the edge of the road. Take away these white spots that we don't really need. Scotland is not full of white spots. And see if we can, as I said, put some dark in along the edge of the stream where rocks and just general changes in the nature of the plant growth give a variation on the stream edge. And just help us to see a bit of three-dimensionality in the for some reason or other this brush, which I keep adding paint to, seems to want to oh, there we go, seems to want to lift paint off rather than put it down. There we are, so we seem to have dealt with that problem. And let's just make a difference in the darkness of the area there to give us some reason for having got rid of the stream. Alright, so now I need to deal with this area in the front right hand corner, as it were, and just don't know whether this is the right thing to do or not. Let's put in the rocks first. Using neutral tint. And for no particular good reason, I'm adding a bit of green to that. I don't know really why. I suppose they're covered in moss, are they? These rocks. And he says, glancing quickly around to make sure you can see it. I'll then have a go at it with the credit card to see if I can. Some rocks there. And now to deal with this, mind you, what am I going to do with that? That just looks too plain, doesn't it? Is there anything? Yes, we can still put a bit of variation into that area. Yep, that'll do. Just without too much spelling out exactly what it is, because I have no idea what it is. It's just something that's giving the hill a bit of shape. Alright, let's see if we can work in and around these rocks without destroying them. So again, I think I'll have recourse to the credit card to do this. Happy accidents, as they say. Not all the accidents are happy, but sometimes things work out better than you'd planned them. And I think the credit card approach generally gives you a certain amount of randomness, uncontrollability. Some people paint with twigs, and not straight twigs, but bent twigs, and sort of as you move them around, they produce all sorts of unexpected shapes. Because you can't really foresee the way that the tip of the twig is going to move when you rotate it. And twigs being thin things, they tend to bend anyway. I'll just try and put in some of this darker paint to blend in with the colour of the hill a bit. So I'm starting to get some sort of unity in that piece of bank going down from the road. So yes, you get this sort of randomized effect from the credit card, and it also sometimes allows you to do a fair amount of detailed work. Well, I'm using a brush at the moment, having started out thinking I was going to use the credit card to illustrate that particular point. We ended up swapping back to the brush. So you don't have to be able to identify what these things are in the sense of their nature. What you do want to be able to identify is their shape, at least. That's what I'm trying to get here, is the idea of a bank with rocks. Now the other thing I want to do is to try and blend that stream, which is currently far too light and I think far too grey. So I think I want to try and put some green into it, sort of watery green rather than grassy green. I don't know that the bridge has done very much, so let's make it a little less obvious. It's there if you want to look for it. Oh, I wonder if there's a bridge in this picture. Let's have a look. It's, oh yes, there's one there. But it wasn't adding very much to the composition, I don't think. Just de-emphasise the stream up there a little bit. Alright, and maybe darken the road again a bit. But of course I don't want the white lines to be absolutely white, because they never really are there. I mean, they're white paint. By the time they've been trodden on by 100,000 tyres, their whiteness has decreased just a tad. So let's grey the road again, and this time I don't have to be quite so careful about avoiding the white lines, because I'm specifically intending to allow the paint to colour them. So I mean, the idea with the road is that it gives the painting the feeling that there's an aspect of going somewhere to it, but I don't want it to be all dominating, because, well, it's got to lead it has the function of leading the eye into the painting. Just adding more dark. Little by little. Maybe that's covered the white just a little bit too much, so we'll take off some of the colour. You put paint on and you take paint off. Alright, feeling as though that's pretty much at the examination phase. I'll take it over and put it on the wall and look at it for a few minutes. Might just take a bit more paint off. No, I don't know why. Maybe I will. Make the white lines whiter where they're closer to us. That's sort of helped a bit. All right. Maybe I'll dry it before that starts to fill in with grey paint. And just, I think that light there is kind of distracting. Fill in those white spots there. Okay, I'll get back to you if I think there's if I'm able to identify whatever's wrong with it. There's always something wrong with the painting, but sometimes I can work out what it is and sometimes I can't. Okay, overall that's not too far away from what I wanted, but I realise there's a sort of big white stripe going down here, so I think I might just try and darken a little bit underneath that, at the bottom of the hill. So let's just add some water, just a couple of drops there, enough to cover the hillside, and put a bit more paint on. I don't mind if the hill as a whole gets a little bit darker, but we want to try and avoid getting to the same darkness as either of these areas. So, although I'm adding water over the whole thing, I don't think I want to add a lot of paint, but I may end up having to add paint outside of this, well, I almost certainly will have to add paint outside of this central misty area just to try and get the colours to blend. Oh, I'm starting to pick up the paint that's already there at the moment. So let's move on to, what have we got in there at the moment? Nothing much. So we'll see if we can just add enough at the bottom of the hill here to stop us from having a line of white coming down over this entire hill. So I think that's blending reasonably well, but showing up the sort of paint strokes, aren't I? Just add a little bit of colour up there because I've got an edge that I don't really want up at the top. Yeah, that's kind of making the misty cloud coming down over the hill look a little bit less formal and rectilinear. Alright, give it a dry. Oh, not with a water bottle, you won't. And of course that's dried lighter, but I think we might be okay there. The other thing that strikes me about this composition is the very staid nature of the shape of the stream. It just seems so much like a sweet little S shape. So maybe we can improve it by giving us a very narrow stream here and a bit more of a broad stretch of water closer to us. Alright, more examination. I suspect that I may not come back after this occasion. It's just do something to deregularize this. Alrighty. So if that's finished, then good night. If it's finished. No, I'm still not happy with this tongue of mist that comes down here. I'm going to have to bring some mountain colour right up, I think, near towards the top of the hill, just to alleviate that. So again, water going in is the first step, so we don't end up with hard edges. Oh, be bold. There we are. A whole drop of water. Alrighty. Now, switch to a brush that doesn't have, isn't full of just water. And this time we're going to be a bit bolder in adding our colour. See, now this is going towards the colour of that hill behind. I think I'm going to have to blot some of that out. I wonder if tendrils, well, not quite tendrils, but we've got areas where the mist is reaching further. I'm very attracted by this misty hills motif, but I find it very difficult to achieve, just technically. I think that's better. Some people seem to be able to do this sort of thing with just a very minimal amount of brushwork. It's not something I can achieve easily, but well, again, I feel as though we may have got somewhere close to it. So again, I'll dry it, have a look and see what it's like. And again, it's lightened, but I think we might be just about there at this stage. So, examination time. See you again shortly. Okay, well that seems to have done the trick. This is, as I said, not really quite as dark as I wanted it to be, but nevertheless we've got a nice contrast between the misty covered area and the rest of the hill, and we have a distinction between these two areas, the darker areas here and the hill in the background, so it's probably just as well that this dried lighter. And the only other thing I've done since last you saw was I've just knocked this little bit of stream back a little bit. It was catching the eye and drawing the attention away from the middle, so this is all supposed to sort of lead up to there, and I don't want too much of an alternative view focal point to exist. So, thank you for your company, and we'll catch you some other time. Good night.